So we're going to go through our all team meeting as quickly as we can, so we can get down to the discussion, because it's a nice meaty discussion on is decentralized social dead. So we'll get into that, but I'll try to get through the tactical parts of the meeting quick. So that's our weekly all team tactical. We're going to use this time to sync up on what's going on around BFoundation, eliminate blockers, and prioritize our work. What do we do at BFoundation? We help purpose-driven communities use Web3 tooling to generate revenue and engagement. If you're wondering how to participate, we're Doocracy. If you want to see something happen, just do it. Post about it on Discord, get some feedback, and post it in What Did You Ship? And we send out Black Flag Token weekly. So the more you do, the more ownership you get of the BFoundation. At least that's the hope. On the lag metric side, this is what we're trying to achieve. We have 52,033 in the vault. That's plus $5 from last week. Still not including the ETH deposits, only the USDC deposits, but I will add that in at some point. We also have 1,016 transaction volume. So that's plus, I mean, pretty much almost all of it from last week on Bcard. On the lead metric side, we had 5 weekly contributors, so plus 2 from last week. We had 25 external engagements on Farcaster, and we have a 411.54 monthly burn rate, which I expect to drop down to probably less than, just maybe above 200 in the next month, as we had more than just CoinGecko. But yeah, so our burn rate will improve as we go. I'm going to skip over the team-wide announcements. But yes, you know what? I will give Chris, I'll give you a little bit of space to introduce yourself. So who are you? What brings you here? And what would you like to contribute, if anything?
Thanks, Al. I'm Chris Co-Created. I'm a builder and an artist. I look to make work that helps us live freely and happily. Essentially stuff that enhances our well-being. I've been kind of knocking around the space since late 21, and mainly active in Farcaster. Noting my PFP here on Discord is probably about 2 years old at this point. So yeah, a lot less involved in nouns than I used to be, but that was kind of where I came up, I guess. And now the main thing I'm building is a long form social media client on top of Farcaster, or at least bootstrapped out the Farcaster ecosystem. Let's see how everything unfolds over the next little while. But essentially, I've been kind of inspired by the genius, the collective genius of the on the space on Farcaster, the people that are there early, and like that's basically how I know you guys. And wanted to create a space that preserved that was kind of like a third space for deeper thought and connection, where the longer form work can be engaged with properly, where artists can do quality pieces and have a proper audience and proper conversation, instead of just like the doom scrolling of the feed and everything having to be reduced into something that can be understood in a few seconds. So yeah, kind of very much a passion project at the moment, building kind of, and there's kind of drawing in other passionate people that are interested in similar topics. So seeing where that goes. Other than that, husband, father, and social care entrepreneur in the real world.
Nice. Well, thanks for that update. Appreciate having you here. I'm struggling a little bit with the Notion UI. But yeah, thanks for having us and thanks for sharing. And as well, if you want to use this as a as an accountability space, did you want to tell us about SOFA and what you did last week and what you might do this week? Up to you.
Oh, thank you. Um, sure. If that's kind of what everyone else is using the space for, kind of be happy to. Last week, I've mainly been working on switching my database over from Neon to Superbase, which I think is now complete. That was a fairly major design error 3 weeks back. This caused me a lot of pain, but I think I'm there. Been working up some kind of communications things, so I've now got twice a day a cast going out about the features, values, underpins, thoughts around Sofa to kind of help people understand what it's doing. Had our community call last night talking about making Sofa a great place for artists and writers, and put that out on Parcaster this morning, my time. Week ahead is primarily about collections, which is kind of something new that it's not in public on Sofa yet, but it's a way for curators to bring together collections of casts and present them in a way where they've got a lot of control over the look and feel of it. And what my hope is with that is that it's going to shift Sofa from just being taking stuff off the protocol into creating something that's kind of net new to the ecosystem, and us have a place to curate creatively, if that makes some sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the topic for next week's community call, with a view to then getting the first and perhaps several collections out. So I need to keep my focus there.
Okay. First couple of collections. All right, thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. And it's interesting because
Pleasure.
we're ideating something like that for our community or our kind of like let's say our proof of concept community where we have like each of these widgets and we're like looking at like, oh, how might we use like a decentralized social widget, and we talked about like having chatter and that kind of thing. So I'll be interested in seeing, I mean, I know you showed me already like what the curations look like, but I'll be interested in seeing what you guys get out.
Nice. Cool. And I suppose something that perhaps worth highlighting this group is that there is a wider background conversation about what some of the things we're doing might belong on protocol, and it doesn't. Is there other things that kind of make sense on my platform than your platform, and that the same activity shows up across those, not that side of things.
Nice. Cool. I like how we're all exploring this space as we go. Get inspired from each other. That's the way to do it, I think. Um, Looking at B pages, still aiming to get to that first launch. The deposit widget, I actually didn't make any progress on this week. So the deposit widget, so this is what I did last week, but the next step is to allow users to deposit more than $1 and to add instructions. And so this is really just like UI kind of stuff. Now we have the underlying blockchain stuff working. So we're going to get a little bit more UI work on this. And then admin panel. Well, Tom and I talked about it, and Tom, I actually wondered if we might talk a little bit deeper, maybe later this week, maybe later today, if you have some time, about using Equilibrium or other kinds of methods for the admin panel. I know we briefly talked about it, but I'd like to dig in. We were talking about the badges widget, contributor widget, deposit with fiat, and Farcaster widget, so mini apps and chatter. So that's kind of next up, but of course, the thing at the top is the thing at the top. So that's what I'll work on next. in the Bcard app, the CoinGecko downgrade. Any updates on the back end, Tom? I think like last we left it, you just needed to deploy to prod.
Yep, it's still there, waiting to be deployed to prod. I wanted to schedule those crons and get that push deployed. My goal is before the end of the month, so a couple of days.
Nice. All right, and the automation of the monthly inactivity emails. NF Thinker left some feedback. Any updates on this, Tom and/or NF Thinker?
I saw the feedback. Thanks for taking a look at it. I'm definitely going to implement and integrate the requests. I haven't taken a look at doing any of it yet.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks to the two of you. And then BFoundation. So we're going to try to establish a case study in presence with Black Flag Collective. We did distribute the funds for December. I did it in the longest way possible by vibe coding a little script to make it easier to do, which I uploaded to our shared repository. So anyone can do it, although you will need API keys and whatnot. I haven't put those API keys in our shared vault yet, but if you, I'll try to put them up today if you want to run it yourself. But if you run it yourself, just keep in mind that it is actually going to update. It is going to put a transaction up on our safe. It is going to update our Google Sheet. So maybe talk to me first before you run it if you want to run it. Yeah, so that takes my work down from like a kind of half hour that I would normally take to do that down to about like less than 5 minutes, which is kind of cool. The intent as well for me was that I coded it in such a way that we could use it through the API as well. And what that means is that potentially we could add this to the admin panel. So we have that kind of deposit widget, that vault widget. We have that vote widget. Well, can we make it easier for me on the Black Flag Collective admin panel to distribute those funds without having to go to all of these other products to do it? Well, we have some kind of glue to do that, but it's not, to be honest, it's not great because it's using way too many external things. But anyways, something to know, and no action needed from anyone else right now. On our yearly tax filing, how's this going, Richard?
I ran all the extracts in Taxman, but I have not labeled them and put them on the share drive. But that's my next step, and that's why after I do that, I'll put a little note in the what did you ship. But I did work on
Cool.
that.
Awesome. We did also get a little bit of inspiration from Cookie of Cool Together fame, who said, "Oh, there are some ways that they kind of reduce what they need to do for historical prices in Cabana, but I don't know if it's like directly relatable or transferable to Taxman." My initial plan was to kind of take it down. But anyways, we'll see. I mean, I think we're kind of deprioritizing it now anyway, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But it would be interesting to kind of see how we might use some other more resilient methods without requiring people to spend monthly fees to get some of these historical prices. But yeah, we shall see. We shall see.
Well, you remember the way I hacked it in originally before we paid for the API?
Yep. Yeah, I remember.
And
And
that's kind of the way that I would think to do it, or whatever. Is it's just like everybody gets a local cache, but
it doesn't work for arbitrary tokens though.
well, yeah, agreed. You need still some current live lookup, and then you just need some write back via API, right?
Yeah, so I think like yeah. And so like I'm not sure the best way for a user to do it, right? Because like if like I have a token that I have that has some value, but no one else uses this token, like let's say this Black Flag token that we're using. Oh, I want to pay taxes on it, there's some worth there, but um it's not worth it for me or you to add that kind of historical data. How might a user be able to deal with that? I don't know.
Like establishing their own price point for an unknown asset.
Yeah. So I don't know, but like Etherscan has this interesting thing when you go to the CSV exports, like let's just look at like Vitalik .eth. Um, yeah, so we have Vitalik.eth here. And you don't see it here, but in the CSV exports, it actually has the USD value at a specific time. So let's see if I download this. No, it doesn't show it here. Unfortunately, it doesn't show it here. But all this to say that maybe we can reduce it to just using Etherscan. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're doing for their. Anyways, it's worth the discussion. I
Maybe
don't think it's worth the discussion with everyone though. But yeah.
maybe ultimately the most elegant solution would be to have communities self-host their own price oracle if they want to integrate a token and have a token. Why not have a whole tool set like your own oracle? But hey,
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there right now.
I guess we are getting them to set their own internal settings for API keys and wallet addresses and so on and so forth. So having them set an internal pricing scheme is not, I guess, above board if it is a, as you say, custom token that has no other
It's just
history.
I
There could
guess
be
we just have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
yeah,
Tom. I didn't mean to cut
Oh,
you
I was
off.
just gonna say it could be just something like a global fallback, right? That is set per community. If they issue a token, it's maybe carries a whatever it is, 1/1,000,000th of a cent,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, set
relational
value.
value or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be able
Yeah,
to do
as
something
long
like
as
just get the ETH value or something like that. But again, that would
yeah.
require us to use a DEX and know which DEX they're using, which DEX has the most liquidity or whatever, right? Anyways, all
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
I
to
think
say that
solving the liquidity problem is outside of the scope of that, but maybe just having like something that like is internal to our app, right?
yeah, something that's internally consistent. I mean, if you want to use Taxman the way it is to do your taxes, do it before February 15th because that's when we run out of that's when we have stopped paying for CoinGecko.
Everybody
Yeah,
pull your reports and save them.
I'm 100% going to pull all my reports because I tried using some of these other tax tools and I don't know, they weren't exactly what I wanted. But again, I feel like we could all honestly write our own tax software now using Claude Code. So
It's true. At the end of the day, some people, we all just want a spreadsheet that we can have for our records, right?
that's that's exactly what I want to. So all right. All right. Thanks for that, Richard. On the reducing burn that we're trying to do, next steps would be to take down Taxman and reduce the emails that we have in Google Apps. Um, we're not actually gonna save any money by taking down Taxman because it's just hosted on Vercel and we're already paying. But yeah, we'll see. These aren't really actually really big things for us to do, but not a priority. Let's say that. And on the playbook side, no progress. Sorry about this. I've been doing some deep thinking on some other topics, but I'll get back into the playbook when I have some time and some inspiration. Speaking of inspiration, we can get down into our discussion soon. I will just quickly, for the what did you ship, go through each of these. And if Thinker had a partnership meeting with Together Crew, that was 500 B card. Um, Tom tested staging deploy for token pricing Hotwire with pool reward test. That's 250 B card. Winverse taped and shipped the all hands. That's 2K B card. I held the all hands. That's 2K B card. I met with Chris Co-Created, who's here now. 1K B card. Arcosti answered contributor rewards for weeks 2 and 3 into splits for final review and distribution, and also updated NF Thinker's address to embedded wallet and added to the splits contracts. That's 500 B card. Actually, that reminds me, I should probably change my wallet address too. So maybe I'll just do that myself. But yeah, I'll set it to my embedded wallet so we have that kind of full loop. I did send out the contributor awards and shared the vote on socials. That's 250 B card. I shared out all hands on social. That's 250 B card. I updated Gitbook and cleaned up Discord. That's 500 B card. I made a tool to help do our monthly disbursements for Black Flags. That's 3K B card. And then I fixed it for another 1K B card. I shared a December disbursement on social. That's 250 B card. And Arcosi checked the reporting issue where staging data returns when running CSV extracts from production admin dashboard. That's 250 B card. All right. Anything else that we did that's not on this list here? Cool. All right. Let's get into the discussion. So, on the crypto news front, we haven't done a crypto news session in a couple of weeks. So, I noticed some. I feel like everyone notices pattern, but it seems like a lot of decentralized social apps have. There's been a big switch up. So Lens went to the Mask network, and Farca, and so that was from kind of like Avara, who owns Aave. They had been stewarding Lens, and then they sent it over to Mask Network to start stewarding. Farcaster goes to Nanar. So Nanar is an infrastructure provider for Farcaster. If you want a Farcaster app, if you want to write a Farcaster app, probably the easiest way to do it is using Nanar. So Farcaster goes to Nanar and Foundation, which is honestly maybe the most surprising of the bunch, but still pretty interesting, goes to Black Dove. Foundation is a NFT platform, and honestly, probably one of the most resilient NFT platforms. It actually has you write your own, deploy your own contract. It's kind of like more of that decentralized approach, more of that kind of like permissionless approach versus some of the other NFT platforms, which would use their own contracts, and you're just kind of, you're not actually, there's no proof of provenance there. So that is going to Black Dove, which is, I would say, a digital art provider, for galleries, and they have a network of artists and galleries already. And as part of that, Rodeo is winding down. So Rodeo.club, it is closing its doors, and so this was another kind of social fi app. And so, I mean, any reaction to that kind of top level news?
Does it feel like consolidation or more like just like people giving up, do you think?
I mean, what do you think? I put it a little bit more
It
down what
looks
I
like
think it is, but yeah.
consolidation when companies are going to other companies, right? Or there's like some sort of mergers that are happening or whatever. But often I think in that case, it's because either there's not enough interest in either area, that they're not sort of, generating independently the attention needed. And so they're trying to combine forces to, get more interest, I guess.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I could see that for Lens going to Mass Network, but it's so like, I mean, I'll write down. I'll say what I thought here. But yeah, I don't know. I saw a couple people unmute. Did you, other thoughts on the top level news?
Well, I was just going to say in general, I think I've seen like a lot of like kind of acquihire situations and winding down or consolidating, because it seems like AI has sucked up all of the funding, and anything outside of that space is not getting funded.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like some examples were Brex got acquired for like, I guess it was like about half their previous round valuation. I mean, I think
What's Brex?
it's that like payment card for specifically for like venture-backed or it was started for venture-backed startups, but they were acquired by Capital One.
Interesting.
It's like similar to Ramp.
Hmm.
That was a big one, and then I've seen like some closer to home stuff where teams just went to join a larger organization and basically didn't return much to the investors.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a difficult environment if you're not doing AI.
Yep.
And then maybe stable coins and
How about you, Anna Thinker? Did you unmute there?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Richard. Funding is really being directed in AI and automations, agentic economy, and privacy. Um, the the social protocols they're definitely not dead. That's for sure. I don't know what plans Nanar has for Farcaster, but I'm sure they see the value in that social fi idea, that whole concept, the ownership economy. Ownership economy was kind of abandoned in a way by Zora base. I mean, Zora does do the ownership economy well, but it's too shilly. It's too like influencery. It's moved away from provenance of ideas more towards like shill in your face, shilling tokens, 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 and especially the base app. So that's not a knock on them. They're exploring it in their own ways, but it becomes taxing on the participants of the network, right? You open up Farcaster because they notify you that some new token is listed, and you're like, "Whoa, that's a cool idea. Buy $5 of that, $10 of that." Before you know it, you're $100 in, and I don't know how many other people this happened to. Yeah, sure, you probably win big a couple of times and get some airdrops, maybe if you're lucky. But at the end of the day, you are putting yourself at risk to lose a lot of money. There's always another scam. So it's a really intensive industry, not one that everybody wants to partake in. I talk to my friends and they partially think I'm crazy for interacting with crypto in the way I do, because I'm active in communities and DAOs, etc. And they've got, their normal life that doesn't involve decentralized living at all. So the SocialFi thing, it has a way to grow. Naynar, I think, will be a good steward of Farcaster. And who was it? Mask, who got Lens. I think, I've only toyed with Mask once a while ago. I think I had the app and tried it a few times. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they do the same thing. Do it for the protocol, do it for the greater good. Hopefully, fingers crossed, 5 years down the line, we'll be revisiting SocialFi in a more holistic way. 2 years down the line, hopefully, even, or maybe even next year. Or hey, 2026 is the year of SocialFi.
Yeah, we'll see, right? We'll see if 2026 is the year of
We'll say
SocialFi, but yeah.
2027. Yeah, this is the year of privacy and AI. Next year, I don't know. Probably not DeFi. I think next year might be the year of biosciences and DeSci. That could very well be.
Chris, is your audio working now?
Seems to be. Thanks.
Did you have something to say on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that there's a sort of pullback to people who are passionate about it, rather than people who think they're gonna build a unicorn off it. Right at the moment, I mean, I'm much closer to Farcaster than anything else. But what Nano is saying is that they're reducing their level of ambition by a factor of 100 or something. They're going after 1 million or 10 million rather than Merkel's stated ambition of 1 billion. And I'm finding it kind of mixed, because on the one hand, I'm much more excited about Naynar's vision of what they're up to with Farcaster. Very builder oriented, like, let's empower people to create on top of Farcaster. Let's see what happens. Makes a lot of sense to me. At the same time, they've got a hell of a lot less runway than the Merkel team. And so it kind of makes things feel sort of shakier. Whereas Farcaster was always, they've got a massive war chest there, and they can keep going. I suppose it makes Farcaster feel a lot more experimental to me, which on the one hand is is much more exciting and energizing, but at the same time kind of feels like we're all still messing around here trying to work out what this thing is.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's an important aspect of it too, right? I think like as soon as you, I mean, something we discuss a lot here, as soon as you take that venture money, there's this kind of expectation of growth. And that expectation of growth sometimes can lead you to local maxima because you can't build something for a small audience. Because what the heck are you doing? Why are you building for a small audience, right? But
Yeah.
when there's less money involved, you might be able to discover something that maybe isn't obvious, isn't something that is for everyone, and it is something truly novel and unique. So yeah, I think like
Yeah.
I put that down a little bit into this why now section. A lot of things that people have said. Investor money has dried up, I would say. There was a moment around the time of Friend Tech where investors were kind of felt like they were a little bit behind and they needed to deploy capital as quickly as they could. And I think that there was a moment around Degen where which Farcaster really navigated well to get that kind of using the narrative of Frentech and the narrative of SocialFi, plus that kind of moment of Degen to raise that $180 million. But right now, most money seems to be in institutional acceptance of stablecoins and not in blockchain at all for the most part. Most of the institutional money's in AI and defense tech right now. Um, has to do with the state of the world. It has to do with the narratives. It has to do with the technology, right? But that's the kind of long and short of it. And if you think about how Farcaster had raised, they didn't need that money, but people like Foundation and people like Lens, they would need that money at some point, right? And so I also think the founders have mainly seen the writing on the wall. In general, I think for their ambitions, they were probably too early. I think that this cohort of founders had been working for 5+ years on this, and with the recent U.S. regulatory lack of action, it does not look like the regulatory environment is going to change more than it has. It doesn't look like their hands are going to be untied anytime soon. So it is going to be a big slog for them. And a lot of these people, when they're coming at it from a venture perspective, there's a big opportunity cost for them. If they're coming at it for a venture perspective, they're looking to make money. They're looking to make, potentially massive impact, life-changing things. And if their hands are going to be tied for another 5+ years, they're not going to be able to make that impact. So for a lot of these founders, they might be packing it up and going back to the drawing board of something else they can make massive impact with. I don't think that crypto social. It seemed like there was a point where a lot of people thought crypto social was going to take off at any moment. It was just going to take one or two good products to uproot Facebook or Twitter or something like that. I don't think that most people believe that anymore. And no one has cracked the revenue model. I think Web2 Social was a money machine because it was a new way to sell ads, right? So before we had that kind of money machine in search engine, and now then we had a money machine in social. I think that there was lots of attempts to make Web3 revenue, but there hasn't been much to show from it. But aside from Clanker, but even then, that was really driven by speculation and not really durable value like ads. And when I say ads are durable value, it's because by paying for an ad, you make money in some ways. There's a way to finagle that so you make money. Not so with a lot of these other things. So I think like in general, like why now? I think that a lot of the euphoria has died down. Founders and investors are looking at this more in a more sober perspective, and the narratives have moved on. Right now, AI has had its moment, and people are kind of like max bullish on AI. And of course, if you know anything about venture funding, you'll know that the next narrative is just around the corner. These narratives tend to last, 1 to 2 years, and then they move on to something else. This is the nature of the game, especially when it comes to venture. And so we're just not in that hot space right now. I think a flight to infrastructure is another way to look at this. So in crypto, when in doubt, build infrastructure. I don't know if this is a good thing or not. In fact, I think it's probably not a good thing for the industry as a whole, but it is something that is a tendency that this industry has. One quote that I like from this article is infrastructure compounds while apps churn. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you can't, it's what has happened in this industry so far. Even though this industry has a very short attention span and a very short memory, they seem to not remember anything that happens, past 2 years ago. But yeah, it's still interesting, an interesting quote at least. So if we look at a flight to these kinds of moves in terms of a flight to infrastructure, Nanar is the Farcaster infra provider. They're betting that the most value on Farcaster accrued to their piece of the action, basically making it easier for builders to build on that network. Mass Network is hoping that Lens is the infrastructure it needs to build better apps. So, in case you don't know what Mass Network is, they're essentially building like user side, user facing products and UI, and they're hoping that Lens is kind of the infrastructure that it needs to help them build better. And then Black Dog, they already actually have a large community of artists and collectors, and they have a pretty big footprint in the digital art space. So they're thinking of using Foundation as infrastructure for NFTs, as well as plugging all of the kind of like NFT artists into their existing network, which could be a net win for them, right? And so ultimately, we're looking at all of these things that they have built as infrastructure. And then it goes back to this quote: infrastructure compounds while apps churn. So you can think of that, you can look at it from this perspective as well. And
Speaking of
so, yeah.
NFTs, you can also add Nifty Gateway to the list of companies that's shutting down.
Oh,
There are some. Yeah, Manifold is going to be reaching out and helping people um, who have deployed contracts, Manifold contracts using Nifty Gateway, if they need to update their code or whatever. But yeah, Nifty Gateway is going on. That was one of the first platforms I used to buy an NFT. It was buying cash, and I was like, okay, we'll give it a try. So I guess the model not sustainable, but it was novel. Definitely rocked the industry.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, I think, as well, because like ultimately it's really expensive to run some of these sites just because it's expensive um to index Ethereum data in a way that is really user friendly. So for instance, I mean we talk about this often when we're looking at, Black Flag Collective, but we were just talking about it for Taxman too. So like for us to get well indexed data for historical token prices, we're spending $129 a month. And that was not even like we were using it so little, right? And so it's really interesting that it costs so much to run some of these, like Nifty Gateway. They're probably shutting down because it costs a lot of money for them to run the infrastructure to index the NFTs in a way that's actually user friendly. In the same way as Web 2. Web 2 actually has like a really, let's call it um, a real big advantage in hosting your own data, in that you can optimize that pretty cheaply, right? But if you're using data on blockchain, um, you're asking the user to sit there and wait for seconds, maybe even minutes, to see their NFTs, and um, that's not great, right? And so people would
No, it's not.
preemptively
And
index this stuff, right?
not to jump too far ahead, but maybe what we should be looking at is what data do communities want to index, and what can we offer for cheap or free, and what can we offer in terms of premium services for communities who want to offer everything. Um, and it kind of touches on what we were discussing last week with community analytics, etc. So yeah, just thought I'd drop that in there. Not relevant now, but for future reference.
Yeah, and so for just to remind everyone, and for Chris Co-Created's benefit, like one of the things that we're doing with B Pages, which is that kind of like Black Flag Collective site that you saw, is can we create uh, essentially tooling for communities to have all of these interesting tools that are connected to blockchain without having to pay a ton of money for them. So, like for instance, can we have a storefront without having someone have to pay for Shopify? So instead of costing you $30 a month, it's costing you like almost nothing. Does that unlock interesting new use cases? Does that kind of democratize access to this? Instead of having an endowment fund in TradFi where you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to set it up and have like a regular kind of bookkeeping and everything like that, can we do that on chain and still allow people to utilize this stuff for little to no money? Can I set up an endowment fund for myself without having to spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours setting this up and maintaining it over time? That's what we're exploring. And when you look at some of these kinds of things where people are shutting down, maybe because it costs a lot of money to run these sites, you might understand a little bit more the benefit of that resilience. So I do think that it's important to understand that we're not a VC-backed company organization either, and that means that we have different things that we're able to do, different strengths and weaknesses. So is SocialFi dead? Is decentralized social dead? Personally, I feel like SocialFi is dead. The idea of financializing your personal relationships, I don't really think it makes sense, to be honest. And if you step back for a couple of minutes, I think most people would agree with that. But what do you think? Is decentralized social dead? Is SocialFi dead? Personally, I think decentralized social is still interesting. We see people working on AT protocol and Mastodon. These have been not highly adopted, but they have been highly resilient in that they've been around. I mean, Mastodon's been around for 10 plus years. So it's interesting because they took a different approach to it. But yeah, I'm interested on your thoughts on this. Is SocialFi dead? Is decentralized social dead?
I think we're in a lull. Like the conversations I have, people still really want the thing that this was promising, their own social graph. You know, you can't be throwing off platforms, and anonymity, and there's still nothing delivering on it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we're still just kind of trying to find our way through something meaningful. And one take that I quite enjoyed from Jonathan Colton. He did a blog that Farcaster found product market fit. It just wasn't the market that the founders and their funders wanted. That actually for the few thousand people that were knocking around on Farcaster, it was delivering everything that anyone wanted or cared about.
Yep. Yep, I agree. In fact, I think like you always have product market fit, but your market just may not be big. And that might be okay when you're not venture funded.
Right. And that's the massive opportunity of, or a massive opportunity of vibe coding, right? That so many more small things can flourish potentially with no need for funding.
Yep. Absolutely.
Attention is all you need, right?
Yeah.
To build something now. Like just you
thought
got
that
to
was
pay
love.
attention to it, right? I love that one's a little more musical.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because like if you look at the venture narratives around this, so I was reading a couple articles in anticipation of this discussion. And, you know, they're always talking to some venture capitalist who has like a take, and they're basically like, SocialFi is dead. You know, no one cares about it. What they're saying is no one in their circles, their venture capital circles, cares about it. And, you know, Chris co-created, I think he brought forth, people do care about it. Users care about it, right? Maybe not every user in the world yet. Maybe not most of the users, but there are a strong core group of people who came to Farcaster before it was financialized, who came to Farcaster before there were dozens of people. There's a lot of people using Blue Sky as a Twitter alternative, so they've already felt that pain, right? We talk about it at Bankless a lot. Oh, how do you onboard the masses? Well, honestly, like the masses aren't going to onboard unless there's a reason to, unless they're either getting some benefit. Hey, I get more money for doing this, or I spend less money for doing this, and it's convenient, or They do it because the traditional system was not working for them, right? And so Twitter just wasn't working for all these people, so they migrated over to Blue Sky. They don't actually care, probably, that there is a decentralized aspect of it. I mean, there's definitely a group of people who does care. In fact, a bunch of people moved from Blue Sky to Black Sky because they didn't like the moderation policies of Blue Sky, and that was actually encouraged by the founders because that actually helped them create a new client. They didn't get paid for it. They didn't do it. They just wanted it, right? And so there are people who care. But when you think about this idea that the venture capitalists don't care, or they're declaring the death of SocialFi or something like that, they're just saying that until the next opportunity to make money, right? That is what they're driven by. That is their job, is to be driven by making returns, right? But for people who are looking for something outside of their returns, uh, I actually think that society right now lends itself to decentralized social more than ever. You know, we talk about these platforms where your social graph is locked in. Yes, your social graph is locked in, but also your mind is locked in, right? Like it's been essentially proven that there's a ton of disinformation and activity from Russian bots, North Korean bots, Chinese bots on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok, on Reddit, and you actually don't know at all if this person you're speaking to is a real person or a bot. Um, Everyone knows this, and yet we are still addicted to these platforms. I think that as we see more and more in real life what this is leading to, things like what's happening in Minneapolis, things like what's happening in Venezuela, things like what's happening in Iran, there's going to be more and more appetite for a self-sovereign way for us to communicate with our friends, for us to communicate with others across the world, for us to communicate with people beyond the reach of these rich or politically powerful people. And so I don't think decentralized social is dead, but I think the appetite for making money on it is dead right now. But you'll see that appetite come back as soon as there is more user interest in it. But if we want to be able to actually capture that user interest when it happens, we need to be building the tools now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And with regards to Farcaster, whether it was what they had planned from the beginning or throughout the roadmap, how it twisted and turned, they were always good at the pivot. They did deliver what they said they were going to deliver. And that helped. I think the overall ecosystem launched thousands of projects. Who knows how many projects? Um, what came about from Farcaster, like just to name one clanker, like that was huge. It launched BankerBot, which has now launched the Claude token, and on and on and on. But I think people kind of miss the forest for the trees. What we're enabling with social finance can be a bit daunting at first, or also maybe not. People don't quite fully catch on how SocialFi is already in action in the traditional financial sector, but we don't even realize it. We're blind to the actual social finance that we're sort of that's foisted upon us. So it's just about um, figuring out these tools, using the platforms we have at our discretion, and being able to launch things, launch our ideas, get our ideas out there, because that's what humanity is worth. Our non-fungible thoughts.
Yep, agreed. I think that one of the things, one of the reasons why maybe Farcaster, so you're right, Farcaster launched like 1,000 interesting apps and stuff like that. Far fewer clients, though, and I think that that's interesting too, because I think that it's pretty difficult for an individual to build on Farcaster. I mean, you basically have to use Nanar. This wasn't always the case. It's because they added Snapchain, because they wanted more scalability. When they previously had hubs, anyone could run a hub, for like something like $200 a month, which is still a lot. but a group of developers could get together and they could run their own hub, or hey, if you're making at least $200 a month, you can run your own hub, and that would be okay. But to run a Snapchain node, you need to run something that's going to cost like thousands of dollars or something like that. So it's much better to use something like Nana or something like that. On the other hand, you look at Mastodon or AT Proto, you can run a Mastodon or AT Proto instance on a $5 server if you want. It's not going to have all the features, it's not going to have everything, but it's enough for you to run it. It's enough for you to use it. And so that's really interesting, because it is bottom up, which is our approach. And I think that right now, Farcaster Snapchain design is less bottom up than one might like.
Yeah, that makes sense. And regarding the social side, the underlying technology that's being currently implemented and used, there no doubt there are other options out there unless things are fully baked in. But the social part of it is the missing link. All these tools exist. It's just about getting people together and creatively using them to their full extent. So that's just to call back to Chris and what he's building with Sofa. I feel like that's one of the things you're tackling from the very start is how do we allow people to elaborate on their ideas in a collaborative way.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of the creating space for people to think together is kind of at the heart of what I'm exploring and building with it, and how to do that and what tech stack to do that on top of is quite interesting. Like it's quite I find it kind of quite fascinating going, right, well, there's some kind of direct messaging, group messaging that would definitely be beneficial to build into what I'm doing. Farcaster currently doesn't expose what they're doing. So that's kind of currently off the table. XMTP uses ETH, so that there's kind of an ease of use there. What Cass is up to with Quorum and is kind of ideologically great, but then every user needs to get another key and store it. And some of my users don't even understand that if they're doing something on Cypher, they're also doing something on the rest of the protocol. So it's kind of quite interesting set of trade-offs as to how we actually tie all this together, but that works in a way that's both user friendly and also genuinely decentralized. Because as we watch these NFT platforms unravel and realize that quite a lot of what was there seems to be pretty centralized.
Yeah, there's something that Moxie Marlinspike, who was the founder and inventor of the Signal protocol, says, and I really believe it, and it works for crypto too. He basically says people don't want to run their own servers. He's absolutely right. And I think like if you take that one step further, people don't want to manage their own keys in a lot of ways, right? Like it's something that seems scary. It's something that seems difficult. I mean, you just see what people are doing with Claudebot right now, and I think it's called Molto now. But they're basically like giving it their keys because they don't want to do it. They just want it. They just want it to work, right? I think it's really something that we all need to understand as we're building user-facing applications in blockchain.
Hell yeah. This has been great, guys. I've got to jump because I've got a meeting in a second.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me in.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for being here, Chris.
Pleasure. Take care, guys. Bye.
See ya.
All right, I'll just say thank you to everyone for being here. I appreciate you guys. It's nice that we can have these discussions. I think it's in some ways it's a no spin zone. We can have honest discussions, and I appreciate you guys for that. So thanks everyone. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.